I just want you to let you know, in the calendar is our monthly meetings. It's every third Thursday. And I would like for you to mark that on your calendar to come and join us for informations information and a lot of training and workshops that we'll be having. And we also have on the 27th of this month will be a leadership meeting. And parents, it's welcome to all, but this is something that we need to know because next year is an election and we need the parents to come in. Know your rights, know what you can do, not only to help your children because they're number one, but to help you to be educated enough to be able to stand for your child and anyone else's child, to know the law the way you're supposed to know it, what you can do in the schools and what you're not allowed to do. This is very important for us parents because when we go up there and get to arguing and upset, it's a translation loss. So we need to know what we need to know. And now,
excuse me, what date was that?
the 27th of October.
And what kind of training is that? What kind of training is that?
It's a leadership training, parent leadership training.
Thank you.
Now, as you know, I'm Loretta Gooden, the president of the District Parent Advisory Council. I have a granddaughter in Med East. I have a great-grandson at Sharp, and they live at my home, and I keep saying I'm not gonna do it, but I always end up with children. And I would like to introduce you to Miss Betty Thomas. She's the executive vice president of the District Parent Advisory Council. Kevin Barfield, the executive secretary of the District Parent Advisory Council. And I just need to let you know that Ms. Wilson had another engagement. That's why you don't see her face here, because she's parental involvement. And there's some paperwork, as I said earlier. There's paperwork over there. We partnership with a program called CAN, and it's on young people's drinking, alcohol abuse, drugs, and it's very interesting, and I need you to get the pamphlets, read it, go through it. You can get in touch with me. My telephone number is 856-365-8217. And if I don't answer the phone, leave a message. I'll get back to you. Oh, I forgot. Today is November. I'm trying to give you my party date. Today is October the 13th. This is our first District Parent Advisory Council meeting of the year. And like I said before, I'm very happy that we are here. Now, I'm going to introduce you for the welcome address, Miss Betty Thomas. I said it right?
You got it right
I said it
first.
right.
She don't know my name. You know what? I don't really care. Just as long as you know I'm here. Oh dear. Good morning to one and all. How many men do I see? Oh Lord. You girls are letting me down. Y'all don't know me, you new girls. When you come to this meeting, bring a man with you. 2 or 3 if you can get them. Because see, I need the men. You know, women like to say, I can do it. But we need men too. We need the fathers to help. Because this is a party, and we all got to play together, every one of us. And to all of you parents who came out this morning, thank you. To the staff that came out, thank you again. See you next month. See you all next month. One more thing from me. This is me, not the school, not anybody. Next month is a big day. It's election day. I want everybody in the United States to be counted in this election. Elections are very important to me. They should be important to everyone. And make sure you cast that ballot. Make sure you remind your neighbors it's time to come out and vote. Thank you.
Next month, I know one of our meetings is going to be based on human trafficking and basically how to reclaim your child. And part of that is dealing with, especially our teenage students or children, and them at this particular point maybe engaging in unhealthy behavior such as drug and alcohols. So I guess basically when she's talking about the 10 Commandments and anti-drug parenting, the list is like 10 Commandments, and one is like, thou shalt not thine with their own child, which meaning some parents are out here, I guess, drinking around their children, and then that kind of thinks the children gives permission for them to actually do that. Basically, the conduct, the interaction with those who are involved in drugs, and basically those parents who sometimes host parties and not really supervising, and then that kind of encourages that, that kind of behavior. So next month, I guess Ms. Gooden will have some ones that will more likely be more detailed in reference to that information. But what I would want to talk about is in reference to meetings, in reference to about the conference that's coming up this weekend. I don't know if anybody actually signed up for that, but that family involvement conference is very important because that's another part of our leadership training, which we know parents need. So basically at this point, with the conversation and the topics that's going to be taking place within our agenda, more of the information that I know that I want to talk about will come out during that time frame. So Ms. Gooden, you put me on the spot, but
Thank you. They say also be ready. So I guess I'll put my glasses on to read. So I guess it's on me to introduce our first speaker. Every Student Success, ESS, Ms. Rivers, please. And she's not no stranger because she helped us last year to open up our first monthly meeting. And I'm just glad that she was able and opening to be able to come up and speak.
Well, actually,
Oh, no, not you too.
I wanted to definitely come, and I think most people are familiar with my face. I joined the district in November. And you're used to me being that go-to person for your NCLB, ESSA, Title I, Title II, Title III questions. But I just wanted to also introduce, we have a new team member to the Business Office Grants Office, Aisling Dickinson, who is our new grants manager. And she's actually going to speak on the changes about No Child Left Behind and us transitioning next year into Every Student Succeeds Act. Aisling?
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here. This is going to be a lot of information, so I do have handouts just because of the length and the depth of the new act. I wanted to make sure that everyone had information that they could take with them. We are going to be talking about how the No Child Left Behind Act is transitioning into the Every Child Succeeds Act, which will be implemented in the 17-18 school year, but we're starting the implementation this year. So there's a few main questions that I'm gonna aim to answer in this presentation. We'll go through each of these topics, and then at the end, I will tell you what Camden City School District is doing now that's in line with the Every Child Succeeds Act. Okay, so the first question is, how did the funds get to our schools? Well, for No Child Left Behind, the federal funds were targeted at high poverty districts, but the state and local funds were not. They had basically the discretion to send them where they wanted. And that really isn't sufficient in closing the funding gap. So with Every Child Succeeds Act, the state and local funds are also going to be targeted at schools who have a great need. So that ensures that our students who need the funding to increase literacy or they need extra support, school-based services, well, the funding will be there at the district. Okay, the next question is underperforming schools. How are the feds supporting our underperforming schools? With No Child Left Behind, they would just kind of replace staff. They would put in a new principal, they would replace up to 50% of the teachers. They'd even transfer the school to a different operator. They'd make it almost like a charter school. And in some cases, they even were closing our schools. And there are almost half of the states that had systems where less resources would go to these high poverty districts. They would actually be sending funding to higher income districts under No Child Left Behind. There were a lot of states that were doing that. And there were also issues within districts where there might be disparity among the schools, where some high wealthy schools, they were getting additional funding, where there were really other schools that needed that. So under Every Child Succeeds Act, high need schools can get anywhere from, our underperforming schools can get anywhere from $50,000 to $500,000 at least. And that depends on the performance of the students, how many students are underperforming. It's based on that need. And they also have funding available to obtain highly qualified teachers. Salary in underperforming schools can be increased to obtain those highly qualified teachers. And that means that teachers would be distributed amongst the district equally, highly qualified teachers, because sometimes they will all go to one school that might be high performing, and then your school that really is in need is not getting those teachers with masters or 20 years of experience. So this helps ensure that there's equal distribution.
So, there's a couple things you said I want to kind of piggyback on, while you're speaking about it. So when you're talking about the funding, and you're saying that basically this is what the new ESSA law is going to be placed in No Child Left Behind.
Yes.
Some of the points are almost similar anyway in reference to highly qualified teachers. And when you're talking about the funding aspect of it, is that still being categorized as SIG money, or is it a different name title for the funding that those schools will be receiving? Because in the past has been school need of improvement grants, money that's been going to those underperforming schools. So what is the language in reference to how they're titling the funding that's going to be replacing the No Child Left Behind SIG title compared to the new law?
I'm going to defer to Jamil on that question.
So the school improvement grants, the traditional SIG grants, we actually don't have those, but we have the SIA grants where the priority schools are receiving that funding, which is the school improvement. Again, the state is still determining the names of a lot of the funding, but I'm pretty sure that the school improvement funds that our priority schools get is going to remain the same. It's going to have the same name. So that's additional funds on top of the Title I Part A funds that they receive.
So who's overseeing to make sure that this districts that don't actually need the fund are not getting it? And if they are getting it, does it cut down on the amount of funds that inner city communities need in terms of being funded?
So the state will need to be sending the funds to the districts or the schools that are, specifically the districts that are low performing, and then within the district, the central office is responsible for making sure that the funding is evenly distributed, and then there's a lot of compliance and reporting back to make sure that you're held accountable for following that.
So, with back to the teachers too, when you're saying that teachers being kind of, I guess you're talking more about equity, and you're talking about teachers having qualified teachers in all your schools instead of just concentrated in, like right now, not magnet schools per se. You're talking about now, is that something that would be done under the leadership of our superintendent? Like, who oversees that process when it comes to how we are staffing our district schools?
Well, the thing is, the funding now is going to be available to the district to specifically hire more highly qualified teachers or provide salary increases. And I believe as we transition into the next school year, we'll be getting more information on how that'll be managed.
So that we are evenly distributing those highly qualified teachers throughout the district.
Yes.
This is what I don't understand. The per pupil spending average in the state is 19,000. Camden get 25,000 per pupil. Now, there are 20 kids in the classroom at $25,000 a pop. And then when you look at the teacher, there's a substitute. Now that, and that didn't just happen this year, or last year, or the year before. It's a trend that's been happening, and people be saying, we're gonna get these teachers. It is, to me, it is just amazing that we get so much money, and there's not a teacher in that classroom, and nothing against substitute, but all they do is push papers. And how is that? Now, I have another one. Now, it's called a regional achievement gap, which was a complete failure. There was $55 million set up for kids who were falling behind. Because when you talk about schools that are underperforming, that means all the kids in there are underperforming. And no matter how good a teacher is, bringing that kid up to par and dealing with 19 other kids is virtually impossible. So when free tutoring was in Camden, I used it it was the greatest thing ever, because I had teachers coming from other places and helping these kids and bringing them up to par. And it was $55 million, and it was $2,000 a semester for a kid. Now, Christopher, the commissioner, Sir, took that away with this race to the top from the president. And what happened is now the rack is gone, but where's the money? Why are we not talking about bringing supplemental educational services back to this district? Because I was just in Woodrow Wilson. I had a kid, a senior, crying, saying, Angel, I am afraid to take my ACT because I don't know anything about math. Now, and kids walking around and say, I don't even know why I come to school, there's no teacher. That to me is troubling, because if you are letting these public schools crumble, they're crumbling on top of our kids. In closing, I see school closure and turning them into charter schools, but guess what? The same kids are behind in the public schools are behind in the charter schools. That's right. And are they better than you? No. So where are the tools to get this done?
Well, Every Child Succeeds they are really not trying to close the schools, and they want to make funding available to those underperforming schools to give higher salaries so we can get those better teachers. Because when the salaries aren't there, the highly qualified teachers are going to go to other districts. So the hope is by offering competitive salaries, you are going to obtain that talent. And I just wanted to make a note, I'm not sure what exactly happened with my presentation, but this side on all the slides is No Child Left Behind.
Oh, okay.
And this side is Every Child Succeeds. I had titles on them, I don't know what I did.
Okay.
But I just wanted to make sure that was clear. It's like a comparison. So I'm gonna move,
Can you answer me one question? Where did the $55 million go?
Well,
That's-
RAC
you know,
is
for-
still connected with our school improvement funds. So RAC is still in existence. All those priority schools that are underperforming, those investments are happening now, actually. So all those schools that you were mentioning, we do know that there's an issue with substitute teachers and too many substitute teachers in the classroom. So there's already a campaign vigorously trying to capture that talent and pursue them in order for them to get in the classroom. Then we also have extended learning. We have assessments in order to identify and track the programming and instruction that's happening in the classroom so that the teachers have the tools in order to identify which students need that extra support. And with the Saturday classes, the after-school programming, and then even we have our college training where they have extra supports, where they have additional courses for ACT and SAT training, and the FAFSA forms and how to fill that out, and providing support to their parents in order how to apply to college. So a lot of those investments, we do understand that it's been a long-term problem, but we are putting in the effort and the money in order to change that. And so ESSA is actually holding districts like ours more accountable, so that way, even though we're implementing a lot of that now, we'll be even more required and provide more reporting in order to show that we're doing what we're supposed to do.
I'm sorry.
I would like to ask everybody, please hold your questions until she gets done, because she'll never get done and we'll miss out on information. Thank you.
okay. So funding is available for highly qualified teachers to ensure that there's going to be equity in getting the talent to these underperforming schools to help our students, to help them succeed. Okay, so the next question is, how are schools safer? And on the left-hand side, that's the No Child Left Behind Act, where students were basically just offered the option to transfer out of their school. Or the school had to develop a plan to reduce violent crimes or focus on the drug-free schools. Whereas the Every Child Succeeds Act really is trying to focus on making the schools holistically more safe, and not just discipline, not just suspending students, but what are the causes? What's going on with these kids? Do they have crises at home that they need assistance with? Are they able to resolve the conflicts on their own with their peer? Not just because they get into a fight, they're going to serve detention, and then they get into another fight, so now they're out of school suspension. What's going on with these kids to try and help them to solve the problem, not just the punishment? And Every Child Succeeds Act offers funding that's available for that. And those are some things that that the school district is currently doing now, which I'll touch on later. Now, the next question, what is the subject and course focus? I'm sure everyone knows with No Child Left Behind, it was math and English language arts. Math and writing and reading, always. And there are stories of schools where 75-80% of these classes were focusing on math and language arts. The kids were not receiving physical education, they weren't receiving science, art, and the academic courses, they were mandated by the federal government. Well, under Every Child Succeeds Act, we now have a focus on a well-rounded education, not just English and math, which are very important, but also history, science and engineering, physical education, art, music. And the states have flexibility now to choose their courses. And there's going to be funding now that's going to allow for flexibility in the classes. So English and math are very important, but we need to make sure that our students are receiving a well-rounded education. Now on to the learning standards. As you know, teachers are required by the state and the federal government to ensure that every class they're teaching meets a learning standard. In No Child Left Behind, they were, again, really focused on reading, writing, math, and the standards had to be applied to all students in that grade level, regardless of if they were performing on that grade level. So with Every Child Succeeds Act, which again is on the far side, the states have flexibility to decide their standards, and the standards need to be aligned with entrance requirements, which means basically college acceptance, career or technical education. The standards need to be aligned with ensuring that the students can succeed in their next role into adulthood, which allows the kids, again, to have a more well-rounded education, and it prepares them for the future, better than just reading and math, which again are very important, but we need to provide our kids with a lot of skills. Then how are the academics assessed? So again, there was that focus for No Child Left Behind on reading and math, or English language arts, writing and math. And their teachers, some teachers had to teach to the test. That's all they were teaching. They wanted to make sure the kids were passing these assessments, the reading and the math assessments. There wasn't flexibility like there will be in ESSA, which is on the far side again. The state is going to have flexibility in choosing their assessments. They have to obviously be highly recognized. They can't just, pull something out of a hat. They need to be academically proven. And they're even going to have the choice to use what is called computer adaptive assessments, where the questions get harder or easier depending on the child's previous answer. Because to say that all students fit into one assessment, that they all are going to take the same one, we're putting all of our childs in the same basket. Where some of these adaptive assessments, they change with the child's performance as they're taking the test. Also, our 8th graders, they will have the opportunity to opt out of the testing because they're getting tested every year, as you know. So if your 8th graders are in a advanced math class and that math class has already exams that are equal to the 8th grade assessment, they'll be able to opt out. And lastly, we're not just going to be measuring our children by these test scores. The test scores will be a measure, but also high school graduation rates and other indicators that the state gets to choose, which could be student engagement, family engagement, school climate. So it's not just going to be, the schools aren't just going to be decided, the schools won't just be measured on whether they're performing or underperforming by test scores alone. Then we have our English language learners. And as you know, under No Child Left Behind, they have to take all the same tests as their other students, which in some cases really doesn't work. If they're just learning the language and we're testing them the same way that we're testing our students, it's not helping them with ensure that they have their long-term needs are met. So Every Child Succeeds allows English language learners to be tested separately for 4 years. Their scores will be reported separately. They'll be tested separately from the other students. If the district chooses, if the student is ready and able to take the test and have their scores reported with the rest of the school, then the district can choose that. But this allows our test results to be more accurate for those students who are performing, and then the English language learners will be assessed separately. And it also ensures that the English language learners, they're getting all their needs met. They're not just being tested the same as students who English is their first language. Then our last question is professional development. So, as you know, our school leaders and our teachers, they need to constantly grow, improve, learn, keep up with the new strategies in education. Well, in No Child Left Behind, there was really a strong focus on certifications and recruitment. Now, with Every Child Succeeds Act, it's not just about getting recruiting certified teachers. Once they're here within the district, we want to make sure that they're continuing to grow and develop and keeping up with, cultural competency or school-based youth service training. So now the states can develop and implement their own evaluation systems so there's more flexibility. It's not just recruiting certified teachers. It goes beyond that, takes it to the next step. And then lastly, we are already starting to do some things here within the Camden School Board of Ed. And in terms of our subject and course focus, Med East just received $50,000 to modernize their library. We are getting new computers and improved internet access. We're expanding our STEM labs so that engineering and technology is available to our students. So shifting the focus from just math and English to a better, well-rounded education. And then with our Safer Schools, we're trying to move away from that disciplinary model, and we have just implemented a pilot program on positive behavior interventions. We're trying to create alternatives for out-of-school suspension. And also, so the positive behavior interventions and supports, providing those students who might be experiencing behavior issues, like I mentioned, getting to the cause of them, not just disciplining, offering them the support that they need for whatever problems or experiences or hardships they're experiencing. And our English language learners, this is pretty awesome. They've seen a 10% rise in their graduation rates. And we're also having bilingual teachers now, so there can be a blended curriculum. Instead of their teachers only speaking English, their teachers now will be bilingual, which will accelerate their learning. And lastly, the professional development. So every teacher now has access to a laptop. So that's really bringing Camden City School District to the 21st century. Our teachers really now can provide an up-to-date curriculum. They can, stay in touch. And then both our school leaders, so our principals, vice principals, as well as our teachers are getting one-on-one coaching every week. So every week they're touching base. They're seeing what did I do great, what needs more improvement, what else do I need to do that's in line with the state or the district. And then our principals are actually meeting twice a month with school leadership to also touch base. So holding our school leaders and our teachers accountable, making and helping them to improve. So I know there's probably a lot of questions because that was a lot of information, but the overview of Every Child Succeeds Act is it gives us the flexibility and it ensures that the funding is available for schools that need it. And it allows the state to take on some of the decision making. It's not all being done by the federal government.
So I guess I have a couple questions. It's surrounding the teacher, because I didn't hear you mention about the college qualified teachers, the right to know, parents' right to know. And as gentleman was saying, and I know as a parent, it's like when you saying the district should be, that's the first thing should have been given out in India, which Woodrow Wilson did do that, on the parents' right to know, as far as highly qualified teachers. And, I think the challenge, and we know that the problem in the district is, how can you have highly qualified teachers if you haven't substitute teachers? And then the other part to that follow-up is in reference to even with No Child Left Behind and then the new law is your PD. Do you have, does the district have a professional development plan? Because I would think that was an actual requirement that should be submitted at the beginning of the school year. It shows what professional development is going to be taking place during the course of the school year.
They absolutely have a professional development plan, and that, like I mentioned, we're already doing one-on-one sessions with the teachers and bi-monthly sessions with the principals. The transparency among the highly qualified teachers, that's actually not in my wheelhouse. I'm not sure if someone else here can answer that.
Right to know and the parent compacts were issued to all of the parents during their back-to-school nights at every school this year. ESSA has a different take on the highly qualified right to know. The wording is going to be a bit different, but the state hasn't given us the guidance or the language that we're supposed to use yet for the 17-18 year. But it is going to have the same premise that parents should know what teachers are instructing their students. And we have a lot of Title II investment in making sure that we can recruit highly qualified teachers. We actually have HR is using Title II money to invest in providing special education certifications for some of our teachers that are interested in that, getting their master's degrees, getting more training. Our Title II money is being utilized for that. And we even have a para-to-teacher program because we have a lot of fantastic paraprofessionals that just need that additional assistance in order to go and pursue their certifications. In order to become teachers, they already have established relationships with our students, and they're able to do a lot of the work within the classroom to support the teachers that kind of have that culture gap. So we're trying to also provide support to them in order to become some more highly qualified teachers within the district. So we're doing a lot of that investment. We know it's a problem. I see it as far as source for teachers, and we don't want to constantly have substitutes in our classrooms. So we're, HR is on it, the cabinet is on it, everybody is trying to pursue more highly qualified teachers so that we can be a destination for highly qualified teachers to want to come to.
Okay, and then follow up on the professional development plan. How can I get a copy of that, and is that aligned with the, I guess the curriculum, core curriculum standards and references?
Most of our PD is in alignment with Common Core and PARC, and then also the cultural competency, classroom data strategies, how to have better instruction in the classroom. I think we can just retrieve a copy. It might already be on the website on camden.k12.nj.us as far as all the professional development that the teachers are aligned with. There is the required evaluation in PD that is incorporated by the state that we're required to do under Danielson. And then there's the, I guess discretionary professional development that they're also involved in that we're encouraging them to take part in. And a lot of that is focused on family engagement and cultural competency, restorative justice, behavioral issues. So we're trying to provide a lot of different supports to our teachers so that they're fully equipped to improve the proficiency of their students. And I believe there's a copy, but if not, reach out to the business office and we'll retrieve a copy from school support in order to email to everyone and you can distribute.
And I did want to follow up on the Parents' Right to Know. Under Every Child Succeeds Act, there is supposed to be greater transparency on where the highly qualified teachers are distributed, even amongst the districts. So, you have some districts where they all kind of go to that highly performing school. And the funding is also going to be there to have these higher salaries to recruit these these highly qualified teachers. So Every Child Succeeds Act does recognize that as a problem and is providing the funding there for these schools.
On the No Child Left Behind, there were no schools that closed. Under
Under No Child Left Behind,
no schools closed.
maybe not here in Camden, but
I'm just talking about Camden. The only thing that matters to me right now is Camden.
they did offer that as a solution for.
No school closed in Camden. In fact, it was supposed to be turned into charters, and then never got to that point. But on the this new name, you see what's just happening. But I got a few questions. Thing is that our kids right now in the public schools are not learning. Now, majority of them are not learning. In the Hispanic community, they're not learning. We're looking for highly qualified teachers, and maybe we should lower the standard to get qualified teachers because we cannot continue to live with substitute teachers. I have kids who have one class with the regular teacher, and the next 3 classes are all substitutes. And that kid is not he is not being prepared for when he get out of when he graduates and goes to college. Now, we have about 60% of the kids in Camden, in the public schools in Camden are Hispanics. 1% of the employees are Hispanic. There's a big problem there. And when you say that the graduation rate for Hispanic kids has increased, well, it probably has, but last year I had 39 kids who were not ready to go to college, but did graduate with a miracle. In 2 weeks, then kids were got the test, they passed on miracles. A miracle happened, and in 2 weeks they passed the test. I mean, the kids were not ready. They should have been ready, and they were not ready to take this test and pass. So what I'm trying to say is that our kids are the most important thing in our lives here. And the district is really a little bit too slow in providing that teacher that's going to educate and get that kid ready for college. And we need to do something else. It's not, obviously, we're already in October.
Right, let me jump in. I have one statement, just a minute.
Go ahead.
One statement that I think I'm listening to all this qualified, highly qualified betrayal. It doesn't matter how much education you give a teacher. You gotta remember one thing about teaching. You're born to it.
Mm-hmm.
You can't create a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
They've got to be born to do it because you gotta have something in you that lets you move on with the children, with yourself. Now that person will be one. That will continue trying to get a better education, trying to get a better grasp of what they're saying. And we've got to learn how to work with young people that are coming into teaching and know this is what you're born to do. This is your status. I'm here to help you.
Yeah.
And they need all of us in the classroom. to
Miss
sort it out.
Murray.
All of this information is so invaluable. I really appreciate all of it, but one of my concerns in terms of these children being well-rounded in their education, they don't know how to write. I was so surprised.
Oh, cursive?
In
That's
cursive.
lot.
Print. And I was so surprised, 3 years ago, my grandson was 17, and he had to sign his signature to something, and he printed his name.
That's not just a Camden problem,
I
that's
understand that
a
because it's on
national
media.
problem. I was like the last
It's on the
class
news.
that
It's on the
received
news all
in
over
second grade script.
that this generation doesn't know how to write, which is important for them to know how to write. They can't even read it.
That is
Also,
a federal issue, nationwide.
Also, a lot of our children are not bilingual, and they need to learn a language outside of the language they're born with. It's imperative in the society that we're living in today that our children be bilingual. And we're not teaching, well, we never really taught Spanish. We taught uno, dos, 1 to 10, and then A, B, C, D. The children need to learn a language. They need to know the basics of it, and they need to learn a language so that they're multilingual,
Correct.
or at least bilingual,
Correct.
in order to get a greater education and hopefully go out and find a job.
Well, that's the hope with every child succeeds. I shouldn't say the hope, that's the goal. That the focus isn't just math and English reading. To be able to provide these other subject areas for our students and to have that funding and to not just be testing our students constantly on English and math. I did want to mention on a lighter note, the Family Involvement Conference. I am working to finalize all of those arrangements. The transportation, you're gonna have a pickup and drop off, your hotel. So that should all be done by, actually not should, will all be done by close of business today. And that information will be coming out. I also wanted to thank, we have an intern in the grants office, Nora. She actually has her master's in education and is getting her master's in social work, and she's been a great resource. So we are trying to build our capacity to make sure that we're available to help you and answer your questions.
I have one more question. How is the district also, I know with the new law coming in, how is the district also fitting in the state's initiative with this career ready practices within the instruction?
Well, one of the exciting things about Every Student Succeeds Act is that 3% of the funding will go to our career technical education. And so we've already been utilizing the Perkins funds that we use for career technical education just to have, and even with Camden High now having the 2 academies where it's not the traditional curriculum, but it's very career readiness focused. so that, some of our students, they know what career they want to pursue. It could be in science. We have partners in the areas such as Subaru that have career shadowing and internships and apprenticeships for manufacturing and engineering jobs. Lockheed Martin is stepping up. The 76ers are even stepping up as far as just giving them that window of transition of, basically cradle to career, so.
One more question. I'm glad they stepping up because they ain't paying no taxes. It's me.
Right.
They ain't stepping up. Jesus Christ. But this is my concern. I was speaking to a teacher the other day, and she said, Angel, they changed the math curriculum.
Yes.
They changed the math curriculum.
They did.
But they did not give us the tools to administer, and especially for the Hispanic community. It's like, okay.
But they're signed up for PD for that change
Yes.
in that. But it's more effective. We can't just have the same standards applied to every child. And this one is adaptive, where it particularly identifies and focuses on providing the support to that student. They can tell what they need support and extra intervention in based on that assessment.
I agree, I understand, but you have to give the teacher the tools.
Right. And so they have training, they have lead educators specifically for math in the classroom with them. So they're not just out on their own on an island to try to,
Well, this lady, this teacher was on her
It's
own.
frustrating. I can
Bring it back in. First of all, I should have said this, and I promised I was going to do this every time I opened up a meeting. This is not, we have a race of our own, and it's called parents. We are together. It's not this culture fighting this culture. We are all parents. We are all working for our children. Our children need help. And that's what we are. We are a race of parents. Children are children. I don't care what language they speak. Yes, everybody's failing. As far as I'm concerned, the English-speaking children are failing because they don't know Spanish, just like the Spanish people are getting help. So we don't want to start this year. This is about our children and parents coming together, learning and getting educated how we can help each other to teach our children. And I want to thank you for coming.
Can I just say something on that real quick?
Let me close and we can talk. We can discuss that. Oh, I forgot about. I forgot about the next presentation. I'm so sorry. Oh my goodness. I don't even know where am I. On the bullying. I'm sorry. It's just I don't want it to be a toss and turn. We want to really, really, truly work for our children, no matter who they are. Special needs, bilingual, English speaking, we're parents. And Miss, what's her last name? Grand. Now we're going to ask for Miss Dran to come up, please, and do your presentation. I'm so sorry that I forgot about you.
It's perfectly fine.
I just need to let everybody know we're parents.
Yes,
We
no, it's
needed an
perfectly
hour
fine.
for that one, but we didn't allow an hour for them. So
Okay,
that's why you get cut short, so.
that's perfectly fine.
Take
And
a
so,
few minutes
you
out.
know what? I appreciate the dialogue and the conversation. Much of what is already in here, you already know and have experienced as parents. We can fast forward a little bit into how those things relate to how you can report and be advocates for your children, and make sure that the things that they need in school are being taken care of as it pertains to instances or occurrences of bullying that they are experiencing. So my name is Elon Drennan. I am the manager of social emotional policy for Camden City School District and also the anti-bullying coordinator. Each of our district schools has an anti-bullying specialist within the school. Most times that person is also a guidance counselor. In some instances, they hold they serve their school community in other capacities. For example, some are teachers, and some are there are guidance counselors, some are college counselors, the family operations coordinators also play a role in making sure that parents have access to this reporting process. Operations coordinators have been trained on this process. Folks in the building know how this should look and how this process should take place. So if there's a parent that shows up and wants to report an instance or occurrence of bullying, then they have the right to do so, and folks should know how to handle that situation. Okay, so we can fast forward through some of these things. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how bullying is defined by law, right? And so the governing statute is the Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights. It was enacted in 2011. That is the current law we are working from now. And so what is HIB? And so as it is defined in district, and these things are pulled from the statute, we need to understand that there are three kind of domains that go into understanding what qualifies as bullying under the law. That doesn't mean, and I also want to give this caveat, it doesn't mean that we are not going to do anything about other instances that our students are experiencing or feeling. If a student feels uncomfortable in their classroom or in the building, we need to do something as adults to remedy that. But when it comes to what is bullying or what is classified as bullying under the law, these are the elements of those things. So the type of behavior, it is any gesture, any written or verbal or physical act, any electronic communication. It can be a single occurrence or a series of occurrences. So it could have happened in one day, or it could have happened over the course or period of many days, many months, over the course of a year. Motivation for behavior, any actual or perceived characteristic. This includes race, color, religion, ancestry, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity and expression, or mental, physical, sensory disabilities, or any other distinguishing characteristic, which is a pretty wide open space. So this reads much like a discrimination statute would for adults. Very rarely are students coming up to one another and saying, I'm picking on you because of your ancestry. I'm picking on you because of your sexual orientation. Those things are manifesting in much different ways. It's up to us as adults to kind of understand the iceberg of the occurrence and determine what is underlying these things. Other distinguishing characteristics. You were the last person to join this class and you came in October, and maybe you have a more timid affect than the other students in the class. We as adults need to figure out the holistic and have a holistic understanding of the circumstances determining how our kids are interacting with one another. Location of behavior, on school property, at a school-sponsored function, on a school bus, or off school grounds. And I always put this in there, including the internet, right? If there were one wish that I could have granted every single day, is that we could turn the internet off at night, right? Because that is a 24-hour, wide open, 7-Eleven style space in which our students are still engaging without, most times, adults being part of the process. And so that is a space where a lot of our kids are vulnerable. A lot of things, once you put them, you learn. I didn't grow up with the internet being as big of a part of school as it is today. You put a picture on the internet and it is still there when you've gone to sleep. You wake up and you may have 100 comments on a photo, right? And so that can be screenshot and sent to other people, things that our students are still developing their ideas of trust and vulnerability with one another. Someone sent a picture to a friend that they thought was going to remain with that friend, but in the matter of moments, that picture can be exponentially spread across the country, across the world, and that student is then coming into school the next day feeling wounded by what's happened that we have no control over, and we can't stop the spread of information on the internet. So it's important to note that these behaviors must cause a substantial disruption or interference in school or of student rights and meet the following conditions. A reasonable person should know under the circumstances that their action will have the effect of physical or emotional harm to a student or damage a student's property or place the student in fear of harm of self or property. So if you had some idea that this would hurt someone else, if you had some idea that this wasn't kind of the right thing to do, the law is relatively vague on this, but most times our students who are acting out or exhibiting bullying behaviors know what's happening. They may not be able to name what exactly they're doing it for, but they do have some reasonable understanding that what they are doing could cause some harm. It has the effect of insulting or demeaning a student or group of students. I, as a student exhibiting bullying behavior, may only be exhibiting this behavior with female students. I may only be exhibiting this behavior with students of a different race, with students of a different sexual orientation. We as adults need to be honest about those circumstances and really make sure we are identifying when that is happening. It creates a hostile educational environment for a student by interfering with a student's education or severely or pervasively causing physical or emotional harm to the student. It's causing some disruption in the school day, in the school process, in the student's interaction with school. Here is how you can report. And so this is a very, very cool tool, a very beautiful tool that the Communications and Engagement Division has helped us out a lot with. This is a screenshot of our, I'm sorry, I'm walking away from the mic. This is a screenshot of our school's website. This is camden.k12.nj.us. You can go online, the internet is still open. This is one of the magical and beautiful things that it can do for us as well. If you click on anti-bullying HIB info, and then click on HIB reporting form in the center of the page, it'll take you to a reporting form that you can fill out online. This has had much success in getting parents engaged around how they can report bullying. You don't have to take off work to come up to the school. You don't have to find somebody within the school that is available to take the information down. You don't have to sit there and take time out of your day to do it. You can do this from anywhere that you have internet access, and all the parent centers have internet access as well. So if you want to report it within the school, you can also do this anonymously. It takes all the information, and then it sends it to me, and I disseminate it to the school to make sure we know exactly when we've initiated this investigation and what information we have at our disposal to make sure that it gets underway as quickly as possible. There was a grandmother who called my office. My number is also on the website if you'd like to reach out to me. There was a grandmother that called the office. Her grandchildren were spending the weekend with her in New York City. And so she was like, I'm here in the Bronx. I reported an instance of HIB. My grandson told me he's being bullied by a student in his class. And so her grandchildren were just spending the weekend with her, and through conversation with them, she was able to get the facts of what this actual HIB occurrence in the school was. She reported this, and it got to us, and we were able to investigate it at the school level. So this is something that is open and at everyone's disposal. It's equal access, it's equal opportunity to get the information to us so that we can actually do something about it.
So, quick question. So basically, are you saying that part of utilizing this platform is also extended to after school hours, weekends, things of that nature?
As long as the internet is open. As long as you have internet access.
A person reporting an incident.
Yeah. So anyone can report. So if you are
something happened on the weekend or something outside of the situation where,
Right.
the weekend they was out of state or whatever, but still the kid still was connected here in the city.
So let me make sure I understand the question. So if in fact it is something that happened to a student and we don't have
I'm saying that it happens after school hours.
Right.
A student is a student of the district. A situation where this harassment, intimidation, or whatever is taking place after school hours or on the weekend,
Right.
They can still utilize this.
They can still utilize this tool, but I want to be really clear, and I'm glad you asked that question because I want to be really clear about what the outcomes are for instances of harassment, intimidation, and bullying as it pertains to this work. Mm-hmm. This offers a lot of mental and emotional supports and some physical supports, but when it comes to wanting to file a police complaint or wanting to take action in some other way, if a student has been seriously harmed in terms of somebody broke the windows out of a parent's car, let's just go to an extreme sort of situation, we can't offer any recourse for that. That would be something, a damage to property, that you would have to report to the police and seek recompense there. This isn't a tool for that. When it comes to making students whole again in the building and making sure students feel safe in the building, there are things we can offer here. But if in fact something else has occurred in the community that is much more significant than what's going to affect a student just in the four walls of the building, then we also need to at times involve police. that answer your question?
Somewhat similar.
Okay.
Somewhat.
Yeah, and this
Somewhat.
and it's also across schools. So last year there was an instance in which a student at Forest Hill and a student at Hatch were involved in an instance of bullying that was happening on the walk to and from school. And so that was something we were able to work with across schools to make sure that we were able to figure out what could happen for those students. We have a responsibility as adults with them coming to and from us and making sure that they're safe in doing so. But, you know, if there was a stranger walking down the street, you know, we can't do anything to stop that stranger. We can only protect our students and make sure that the police know that there's a threat to and from school.
Right, because I guess, you know, for clarification, I mean, you just pointed on the situation where it's like what you're saying is that when a student leaves school, until that student gets home, any kind of infraction it falls back on the school responsibility. I guess it's the school being engaged in whatever may have taken place, you know.
Well, if it's two of our students, most times those things aren't just going to exist in those moments after school. They're gonna surface back in the building, right? I'm going to see you at lunch. I'm going to see you in gym class. I'm going to see you in, after school activities. So we want to make sure that those aren't things that we're ignoring. And even if there's just bullying behavior on the walk to and from school, that we're doing something about it in the building as the adults that have the ability to. We can't expect our kids just to work that out for themselves. We want to offer supports as much as we can. Okay, thanks, Mr. Barfield. Was there another question here? No? Okay. So what's happening in schools? There is no zero tolerance in bullying philosophies. So I always use this as something to remember when we are working with our students that are exhibiting bullying behavior. Hurt people oftentimes hurt people. We want to make sure that we are offering support to the student who is seen as the victim in the situation, but also to the student that is exhibiting the behaviors, because they're not exhibiting those behaviors for no reason. We need to make sure that we are getting at making both students whole and offering them as much support as we possibly can. Teaching students about being a respectful cyber citizen, conditioning students to understand how their behavior impacts others, and building empathy within our students. Getting feedback from students and parents. What's working, what's not working. Increasing supervision in hotspots. In some schools, hotspots are the cafeteria. In other schools, hotspots are the front of the building at 3 p.m. We need to be cognizant and not ignore those things as adults and school leaders. Empowering parents to engage in conversations about self-esteem and bullying. Letting our students know what's appropriate behavior that you should expect and give to someone else. There are certain things that we as parents need to make sure that we are telling our students, no, it's not okay if someone uses that language with you, and yes, it is okay if you respond in this way, but make sure that you tell an adult. Do not be a bystander if you see someone exhibiting those behaviors to someone else. Educating students and parents on safe uses of technology, and intervene, educating, and supporting all involved. So supports and interventions for students and families. These are all supports and interventions that we have used, some this year and some in past years. Developing a behavioral contract with the student. Arrange for an apology. Sometimes that is all that a student wants. With our youngest learners especially, a student says, you know, this is how that made me feel. I need to be able to express and have some agency in determining what exactly that evoked for me. Counseling. How to manage anger, problem solving, and self-esteem, parent conferences, parent notification, loss of privileges for a student, sometimes a detention, and not all the time, but in times there have been suspensions in significant safety threats, and student conferences with all parties or one-on-one. Sometimes there are several parties involved with instances of bullying, and they have progressed for multiple days or weeks. And students reach a point where they feel like, okay, I can't take this anymore. We are hoping that by being proactive, our students don't get to that point where they are in a place that saying like, I can't take this anymore. I need to either cause some physical harm to the student, or I'm breaking, or I'm acting out because no one's really tending to the needs that I'm expressing. So that is something that we are trying to be proactive with, so we're not seeing more and more cases of bullying in our schools. And so that is it. If you have any additional questions, for sure. Did you have a question?
We have a program for the parents to help prevent bullying. You know how our mouths work? Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going to be honest and very frank. We sometimes say very hurtful things about other people in front of our children, not minding what we're saying. But we can carry on some of the bullying tactics from our home, and we have to be educated to stop this one thing.
So, yes, right? And oftentimes our students are mimicking things that they've seen on TV, in media, at home, in so many places. Students are very much so like sponges. And yes, getting the word out and making sure parents are equipped to actually have a space to reflect on like how their own behaviors or something that their student is mimicking in schools. I think just opening the lines of communication and making sure that teachers and school leaders and adults in the building are communicating with parents in a way that's effective and not judgmental or critical, but saying these are the behaviors that I've seen your student exhibiting. Can we talk about some ways to, you know, come up with a contract that the student won't continue to exhibit these behaviors? Or can we talk about, you know, what actually we can do in the building so that this isn't becoming a habit for the student?
In one of your slides, you said something about conditioning our students so that they learn empathy. How are you doing that? I think that's an awesome idea, but in conditioning it can't be in a 10-month period, once or twice.
Right. Exactly.
You know, and I was thinking they really need to see the effects of bullying on some of our children who've actually committed suicide. So I wondered if you would have plays or dramas or something to that effect more than once to help them to actually see and feel, and even maybe have young people come in to share the effects of bullying on them. You know, and that would go for parents too, because as Ms. Thomas said, some of us are implicit in this bullying without realizing it. So I appreciate conditioning them, but how would you go about doing that on a continuous basis so they get the sense of it?
For sure. Ms. Russell, do you want to say what your idea is?
No, the last time we was at the parents round table, I mentioned to you that we should have some type of program where the kids that are being bullied let their person that bullied them actually see and hear how they feel, and maybe it wouldn't continue, because bullying when I was coming up, it wasn't as bad as it is now, and it just it's horrible.
Yeah, but even though it wasn't as bad as it is now, it still affected you to a great degree, because we came up with where it's not as horrible as it. I mean, you have the internet, you have all the social media, but the bullying does affect you as an adult. You still carry it, because I was bullied and I know I still carry some of the scars. And so I mean, now you went to the point you actually, a child is actually hanging themselves. It's horrible. So it's a serious problem, and it really needs to be dealt with.
So no, do you have something?
Yes, that's going to carry you for a long time.
Right. And so that is exactly right. I think there are a couple things. I think we first need to build that capacity in all the adults in our building. And so I would be remiss to say that every single person that we interact with, all of us have enough empathy. And so building that in our adults to recognize that in our students that may not, to recognize it for adults. And so I know there was a question about professional development. Having our school staff and our teachers and our school leaders do some identity exploration and find out where they can build connections with our students. That is a point of professional development that we've already started. And putting ourselves in a place where we're able to have those connections and then start building relationships with students with those connections. In a lot of In a lot of situations, there have been schools that have moved into having done that work and are now using restorative practices and restorative circles to actually have students have a framework for hearing and then moving toward a process of healing within our buildings. Is it perfect yet? By no means. By no means. Have the seeds been planted? Certainly. And so that is work that I am also helping lead, and work that I'm confident we can really get some traction on this year. And so hearing parent voices around that work is instrumental in making it happen, right? Because when our students aren't with us, they are with you. And so if we don't have enough bridges built between parents and families and our schools, and deepening those relationships with our students, then we're actually not going to be able to do it effectively enough to start to heal some of those scars that are caused by bullying.
So basically, do you do this presentation, you know, in the individual schools to the students per se, and then how often does that take place? That's like Ms. Murray was saying, you know, is it like this one time, and you know, from someone, I guess, outside of the school per se, that brings a different, I guess, a fresh perspective to the topic? Is that something that's happening or will be happening in school?
So yes. So I do this presentation for schools and school leaders. I do this presentation with students. I've led restorative circles in classrooms depending upon how the school sees me fitting into where they are in that process. That happens. But there's an anti-bullying specialist, and I work with them very closely to make sure that they are doing that work in the schools. The anti-bullying specialist for each school is on their respective websites and their contact information. So they are leading that work on the ground. I am supporting them in doing that work in their buildings.
So is that connected to the, what is it, the health and safety? Is that part of the,
So
the health and safety team is part of the school?
Yes, so there's a school safety team at each school. The anti-bullying specialist is the chair of that team. On those teams are security officers, nurses, teachers, child study team members sometimes, and they come up together with interventions and supports for students that have experienced bullying and for those that have perpetuated bullying.
I just wanted to say, I went to Camden County Tech in Stricklerville, and I was part of a group called Peer Mediation. And the one-on-one worked a lot, and the way it worked was that if one of the students being bullied couldn't take it anymore, they would report it to a guidance counselor. And what we would do is we would pull each student out of the class. We won't tell them that they were coming to mediation, but they would meet one-on-one in a room, and it would be another student mediating the conversation but he would be stagnant. He wouldn't be on either side. It wouldn't be no one that they knew. So what that does was it brought them to one-on-one. Okay, so it was brought to our attention that you are feeling this type of way because this person is treating this way. Can you express how you feel to this person so they can understand what emotion or causes they're doing to you? And what it does was it made the bully understand how that person's feeling, but it also gave the opportunity to bully to open up to why he's bullying that person. And a lot of the times what we find out was because either they were jealous of what they were wearing, because of clothing, because of this. So when we found a lot of that information within that, I mean, the teacher was outside just in case anything broke out, but what we did was at the end, we had them write down what they discussed, how can we change this from here on out so that we don't have this issue no more? Could it be peer pressure? And then we didn't give them whoever was mediating is just the two individuals are the ones that gave the outcome of how to fix the situation.
Right.
We might give them some information to kind of steer them where we wanted to, but then at the end they signed a paper that, okay, if we come to this again, we agreed to talk it out, not bully each other. We can meet with the guidance counselor again, and it resolved a lot of the fighting that was going on in the school. And then what ended up happening is when we found out that 80% of it was because of clothing, that's when we put the uniform into effect to eliminate all that issue with the kids.
Right, and so that's a beautiful idea. It is an idea that has worked in some of our family schools, and having student groups come together and start to, and that is part of the empathy building process, hearing one another out, making sure that you're able to articulate how you're feeling and knowing that there's a space for that. And then what are the outcomes? What exactly can we do as a school to make sure that those things are remedied? Some work that I can speak to now is at the comprehensive high schools, 2 at Camden High for each complex, and then 1 at Woodrow Wilson, are the deans of climate and culture. And so they have been very instrumental in determining student leaders and who are the students that other students are listening to and following. And how can we get those students to be a voice for students being engaged around some of these things that they're experiencing in the building? And then how can we channel that into something bigger? Student leadership, student activism, students really taking part in how they want their school environment to be for themselves. So it's just October. We've got a lot of work to do, but know that it is happening and know that it is not unheard and know that parents are a fantastic partner in actually seeing it through.
I have a question. How can these parents come and help you with your programs?
Oh, for sure. So getting parents into the buildings to actually request and attend some of the workshops on getting information out. And so I think that is where we are now, making sure that everybody is working from the same page with the same information. And so the parent roundtable that Ms. Fussell attended was, and Mr. Barfield was there as well, was on the student code of conduct. And so what are the expectations that we have for our students? How can we work together in making sure that our students are meeting those expectations? And then how do we hold one another, schools, parents, administration, accountable to when those things are breaking down? So like, how are we defining suspension, right? And I think once we are all working from the same language, from the same understanding, on the same page, then we can see actual forward movement.
I also wanted to add that for the 16-17 years, the title funding is also investing in school climate. So those deans of culture that she just mentioned are being funded by Title I.
Yes, and they are fantastic. If at all you are a parent in the neighborhood, Parkside, you want to stop by Camden High and meet the deans. They are fantastic resources to their schools. And so I know that we report on that data monthly, and I monitor it daily and oftentimes, or weekly and oftentimes daily. But I've seen huge gains in some of our comprehensive buildings.
As far as reports this year, you're talking about as far as reports on bullying?
Well, reports on bullying. So we've made strides from the 2014-15 school year, but so I am, when I see data just take a steep decline, then I'm oftentimes like, what is happening? Because we haven't become that perfect that quickly. But we do need to make sure that we are reporting with fidelity. We did see a close in the gap between the number of cases reported and the number of cases that were actually reported that were bullying. So people were reporting with a better understanding of what was actually bullying, right? So before we were just reporting everything. Last year we got to a space where we were reporting, but those cases were actually bullying, and those cases were actual cases that we needed to move forward and take a lot of action with. It wasn't, oh, a first grader took another first grader's pencil and I don't really know why that happened. We weren't just reporting frivolous claims of bullying. Those were actual instances in which students needed deep support. It was still a lot of cases of bullying, more than I would like to see happen. I'm in one of those jobs where I would love to see myself put out of business. I would love to see there not be a need for me anymore. But no, we need to figure out what worked, how did it work, and then how do we replicate it across buildings. And I don't think we're there yet, but we are seeing some gains. We're good. Any more questions?
Any more questions? I'd just like to say, thank you very much.
I have a question for you, Mayor.
Go ahead.
I haven't had an opportunity to look at our school calendars, but are your meetings on the school calendars? And if so, are coordinators, or whatever their new title is, are they aware of these meetings today?
Yes, they're on the calendar, and we have been told that it's been sent to them when we have our meetings, and it was told to myself that one of the coordinators, they're coordinators regardless, that they don't have to support the Parent Advisory Council, So that's just, that I'm just saying that's what someone came to me and told me. Parents have came to me and also told me that they didn't want to work with them, but that's off air.
All right, here we go.
I can just, can I step
Yeah.
in 1 second? So each week we send an email out to the family and operations coordinators with all the pertinent information. Last week we sent the flyer for today, and they are going to be required to come to the November meeting, I think it's the February meeting and the June meeting. So there are 3 that they're required to attend, but the rest is, we're just saying, share this information with your families and invite them to come. So they get the flyers.
What ones they're required to do?
I believe it's November, February, and June. I thought, yeah, I can follow up with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
But they should.
I think, I'll confirm that with you, Mr. Barfield.
Well, we'll discuss that after this. Let's close this meeting, because I like to be punctual. We're already went over 10 minutes, but I would like to say about the bullying part, I used to be a bully. I just need to let you know, if you want to get an insight in a bully, ask the bully. And I'm not just saying come to me to ask, because it took me a while to realize why I was a bully. Because I'm 4'11", everybody was taller than me, they was pushing on me, talking about the crap. I was the tail end of the joke. So what it is, it's good. I mean, the kids that are being bullied, they need help. But those bullies, trust me, we need help. It took me till I was in the 7th grade for a teacher to realize something was going on in my life to stop me from picking on everybody else. So you need to think on that bully, attack that, not attack, but you got to dig into that bully's fault. And thank you for coming, and we can sit here and chew and talk and have a good time. Thank you for coming to our first meeting.